Who's a must play? Who's a drop? Who's an ad? Week 10 wide receiver fantasy stock report coming up next. Heading into week 10, we have some unfortunate wide receiver downtrends, and that starts in New York City with the Giants and Kadarius Toney. I've spoke about this guy many times on this channel, and I do believe in his talent. We've seen the talent. He's done something that only 6 wide receivers in NFL history have done as a rookie, so it is there. However, the trust is not. The trust that was quickly developed has quickly been depleted, and he is now a deep league hold, a guy that you can, if you need, drop through a bye to pick up if you have need at any position, really. And that's unfortunate because, like I said, we've seen his talent, but the fact is he's heading into a bye week. He has not been productive since his big breakout game. In fact, since week 5 in that game, he's only seen 9 targets. Granted, he has missed a game due to injury. Another unfortunate event that, we have had to deal with when it comes to Kadarius Toney. Ankle injuries, hand injuries. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy. And then now, the wide receiving core getting more healthy, and the targets haven't been there. Now, I will say, why I don't think he is necessarily a drop is coming off a game against the Las Vegas Raiders, which are great against the wide receiver position. He was a bad play in week 9, and we all saw that with he had like a reception for 9 yards or something like that. 3 targets, which actually paced the position for leads, but it was the tight end position that was taken advantage of in the passing game against the Las Vegas Raiders. Like I said, they are really good against the wide receiver position, and they chose to go towards Kyle Rudolph. Actually, that guy ended up with a majority of the targets. Ingram involved, ended up in the end zone, but it wasn't a big passing game for the Giants. Daniel Jones only passed the ball 20 times, and so when you take into account that 8 targets went to the tight end position, 12 targets for everybody else. Kadarius Toney got 3 of those targets, so he did okay in reality from what was, there as a pie to be, dished out. But we expect more from Daniel Jones as far as what he's going to have to do in the passing game moving forward. Coming out of the bye, he's going to have to pass the ball against Tampa Bay. I don't think Tampa Bay is going to just put up 17 points against the Giants. I don't think the Giants are going to confuse Tom Brady. And so there is opportunity coming out of the bye, which is why I think he's a hold. But he does have some tough games. He has some games against the Philadelphia Eagles. Darius Slay's there. And they have been a tough matchup for wide receivers. So there are tough matchups for Toney moving forward. And we probably got a little over our skis, me very much included, on Kadarius Toney after his big 189-yard game. So unfortunately, Kadarius Toney on a downtrend. He's a deep league hold. He's a guy that you can let go if you need. Moving on, another unfortunate name. We know the talent's there, but we just haven't seen it this year, and that's Chase Claypool. 87% rostered right now, so a highly rostered wide receiver who has yet to really show much outside of his big game against Denver. And we're starting to see now that he's wildly unproductive in Juju's absence. The bump in targets is not there. That's gone to Pat Freiermuth. And it's an unfortunate event for, Chase Claypool. But the fact of the matter is, Chase Claypool is not taking advantage of the opportunities he's given. He was given opportunities last night in his Monday Night Football game with the Bears. he had a touchdown go through his hands. His focus is not where it needs to be. He is not as efficient as he needs to be. And I don't think the trust is there with a guy like Ben Roethlisberger where it needs to be. So unfortunately, Chase Claypool is on the downtrend. To me, he's definitely a bench. He's a guy I'm not really interested in playing. He had amazing matchups these last 2 weeks, unable to take advantage. When you think about the Chicago Bears, they've been giving up massive points and massive yards to wide receivers. Chase Claypool, he had his opportunities last night, and he failed to take advantage. And what makes me think that, one, he's going to improve moving forward, and two, the quarterback play in Pittsburgh's going to improve moving forward. So this is not just on Claypool, although a lot of it is, but some of it on Ben Roethlisberger aging, not what he once was, not as accurate as he used to be, playing behind a terrible offensive line and a game plan that's more involved with Najee Harris than it is with a guy like Chase Claypool. This is not a vertical passing game that they have going on right now. Chase Claypool is the vertical passing threat for this team. Therefore, he has been less valuable in 2021 than we would have hoped. So, unfortunately, Chase Claypool on the downtrend. He is a guy that I'm definitely benching, and a guy that, once again, if you need a roster spot, he is a possible drop. I'm still not interested in dropping him. I know he is uber talented. We've heard Mike Tomlin talk about this guy going into their game against Las Vegas. That the opportunity just hasn't been there, and hopefully that will grow. Hopefully this vertical passing game gets a little bit better moving forward, but he is a guy that desperate teams call for desperate measures, and he is a guy that you could theoretically drop for another player, once again, at any position of need. Now we must talk about Jarvis Landry letting everybody down in week 9, 80% rostered. A guy that was on the uptrend last week, Odell Beckham Jr. gone. Man, this guy is just not the PPR maven that he was. We need to stop thinking that he's going to be that. He is a great possession receiver at times for the Cleveland Browns, but he's not a great fantasy receiver anymore. To me, low-end wide receiver 3, desperate flex play, a guy that I'm more interested in benching, another guy that I would use as a possible drop, although I would probably avoid that with his, that there is going to be opportunity moving forward for him, but he's not heavily involved in the vertical passing game. We're talking about that only has double-digit targets once this season, but he has reached that double-digit target so far this year. What worries me the most is his injury issues so far in 2021, unable to stay on the field basically half the season, and I don't know why that's going to change moving forward. If he can stay on the field for the rest of the season, there are going to be opportunities for him moving forward, but he is definitely a guy that I'm more interested in benching following the departure of Odell Beckham. You would hope that he would have taken a bigger step forward. However, you can make the excuse that, between Ward getting a big pick 6, between Chubb getting a big 70-yard touchdown, between Donovan Peoples-Jones making a big touchdown play, that there wasn't a lot of need, that there wasn't a lot of volume in a passing game, and you can still look at what he did for targets last week and go, I still like that. The production wasn't there, but the targets was, and so there still is hope for Jarvis Landry, so I still think he's a guy that you want to hold on to, but the trust right now to have him in your lineup is tenuous at best, and like I said, a guy I would rather have riding Pine. And then another guy that started off this season as a PPR maven, and is slowly fallen off, slowly tapered off, and all the value that he brought in targets, in receptions, in a decent amount of yardage has tapered and tapered and tapered. And we're talking about Jakobi Meyers, 70% rostered still. And like I said, in the beginning of the season, he was doing well in PPR. He wasn't anything special, but he had a really good floor. The problem is that floor has fallen out from under him. He's not a touchdown guy, has never, ever scored a touchdown as a wide receiver, ever. And now we're through 9 weeks of 2021. He's had a shit ton of targets. He's had a shit ton of receptions, and he has yet to score a touchdown. So, he was 2-point conversion. Woo! Fuck yeah, bro. 2-point conversions. Woo! And he gets one more. He can add them all together, and he finally has 6 points. Call that a touchdown. What? Now, Jakobi Meyers, unfortunately, the targets dropping. He has 10 targets in the last 3 weeks. That's 3.33 targets per week. You do the math. That's not good. That's not what buoyed him in the beginning when he had value. And then when you think about the fact that he's averaged over 9.5 yards per reception twice this season, just twice, he's a very unappealing play moving forward. He is definitely a guy that I'm willing to drop for any basically of the ads of this week, and I will talk about some of them moving forward. So unfortunately, Jakobi Meyers, 70% rostered at this point, too high. I was, on his bandwagon early on, but his production has fallen off, and therefore his value has severely tanked, and he is a drop heading into week 10. Some trending up, guys. Must start. Somebody I hear about on a regular basis, the disappointment of the player. And when you look about where he was drafted and where he is right now ranked, Keenan Allen has not lived up to standard. The one thing I will say about Keenan Allen is he's had a very safe floor all season. Has he been that surefire wide receiver 1? Has he been a high-end wide receiver 2? He's been a mid-range, low-level wide receiver 2. But he has had a very safe floor all season long. We're talking about a guy in Keenan Allen who is incredibly trusted, has double-digit scoring in PPR every single week this year. And when you look at what's happened the last 2 weeks out of the bye, 18 catches, 181 yards, 1 touchdown. Fucking awesome. Dude has been phenomenal. That's what you fucking drafted, and he's finally back there. He started out the season pretty hot, kind of tapered off. Guess what? Mike Williams tapered off, but he's not coming back. So Keenan Allen's got to lift up a little bit of this passing game. He's doing a great job. He's back in that must start territory. If you're asking if I should start Keenan Allen, or it's got to be a damn good or. It better be Jamar Chase. It better be Marquise Brown. It better be one of those lottery ticket mid-round picks that really hit it out the park this season. All right. And so that's what the or's got to be. And then you got to still have something like a Justin Jefferson, or, I right now I put Keenan Allen over Stephon Diggs still. So he is in that must start territory. If you are doing Keenan Allen or you're loaded at the position, congratulations. Dude's a fucking must start. A wide receiver 3 that is out there, a high-end wide receiver 3 that is still out there in about 47% of leagues, and that is Christian Kirk. And I get it. I've talked about him before. I won't stay long on this guy. He's not sexy. Oh, he's not super sexy. But dude has been uber efficient this season. He is wide receiver 24. So if you're in a 12-team PPR league, he's a low end wide receiver 2 right now. And, or a high-end wide receiver 3, which is how I look at him. Dude's a high-end wide receiver 3. He's been fucking awesome. Like I said, wide receiver 24 in PPR. He's been great. He has had moments where he hasn't been as good, but, he's scored 15 or more PPR points 5 times this season out of 9 games, booming more than he's busting. And he's got one really bad bust. Outside of that, his busts are something that you can live with. His booms are something you're happy with. You look at what he did in Hopkins, in relief of Hopkins with a replacement quarterback against a decent what we thought was a decent San Francisco D. And Christian Kirk was really good. If you had him in your lineup, there's a reason why, by the way, he's 53% rostered now. A bunch of fucking people picked him up after DeAndre Hopkins was out on Sunday. And if you picked him up and threw him in your lineup, you were happy with the results, man. What was it? Something like 6 for 91 or something like that. Dude was good. He was definitely the best wide receiver. He was definitely the best fantasy asset in this. Well, I wouldn't say, I don't know if he was better than Kittle. I don't think he was better than Kittle, but he was one of the best fantasy assets in that game. Obviously James Conner the best in that game, but a underrated wide receiver, high-end wide receiver 3 that's still out there in a lot of leagues, and somebody who I think still needs to be added. I think basically should be universally owned. He should definitely be up in that 85, 87% mark, wherever Chase Claypool is, because I get Chase Claypool is sexy, big plays downfield. Not this season, guys. Touchdowns. Not this season. Look at Christian Kirk. He's kicking his ass every single week. Yet he's out there on waiver wires and people holding on to Chase Claypool. I understand. Chase Claypool, sexy, but he's not getting it done. Christian Kirk is. Another guy who's starting to get it done. Elijah Moore, 50% rostered, was awesome on Thursday Night Football for the New York Jets. He has been consistently involved since the week 6 bye, meaning 6 or more targets every single week outside of the bye. Ironically, improved quarterback play at the moment with Zach Wilson out with an injured knee, which has improved Eli's numbers, man. And he's got exploitable matchups moving forward. You're talking about a guy that gets to play the Miami Dolphins twice. He gets to play Houston. He gets to play Jacksonville. So if they finally started unlocking the secret that is Elijah Moore, this was a team that was super excited to draft this guy in the 2nd round. They truly believe in his talent. This is a guy that basically made Denzel Mims' 2nd round pick out of last year irrelevant for this team, and he is the focus, the future of the position for this franchise right now, and they're hoping it starts in the second half of the season, which they're hoping started last Thursday night. So Elijah Moore, a guy that has the ability to make noise, to be a solid flex play, wide receiver 3 moving forward, is a guy that is almost universally addable. He's at 85% available in ESPN leagues. So a guy that heading into week 10 value is going up and is definitely an add moving forward. A guy that I think is a speculative add. Maybe you can add him to your watch list, but I don't know if he will make it through. Well, he'll make it through waivers this week. Let's face it. There's a lot of guys on waivers that should be added. But there is something really sexy about Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's 5.4% rostered on the Cleveland Browns, and he is the deep threat for the Browns. He was the guy that I thought was being groomed to take over for an Odell Beckham Jr. or a Jarvis Landry should one of them leave. Well, Jarvis Landry's obviously the slot. That's not the position that Donovan Peoples-Jones plays. That was the position that Odell Beckham Jr. played. And by the way, dude made it through waivers, so he's going to sign with whoever the fuck he wants. Fuck you, Odell Beckham Jr., and fuck all you pansy bitch wide receivers who bitch your fucking way out of your fucking team, you fucking cancerous fucking bitches, and then you get your way and you go sign with a fucking whatever team you want, and you get to go cozy into fucking playoffs, all happy, everything's roses. No, you're a fucking punk! With that said, Donovan Peoples-Jones didn't get a lot of opportunity, but he did a lot with the opportunity he got in week 9. Had 3 receptions for like 86 yards and a touchdown, something like that. Like I said, he was involved in one of the long touchdowns of the game. And when you look deep dive into his metrics the first 2 seasons, he has been hyper efficient. We're talking about a guy who, he has three touchdowns this season on 15 touches and 20. He's got 20.9 yards per reception. He's got an 83.3% catch rate. That's fucking insane. In week 5, he gave you 12 PPR points. In week 6, he gave you 26.1 PPR points. In week 9, 16.6 PPR points. And you might be going, well, what happened in week 7 and week 8? Well, he got injured. He got injured in the warm-ups against the Denver Broncos. He didn't play for 2 weeks. So the last 3 weeks that he's played, he's given you 12 or more PPR points. And he is the new starting outside wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. Now, granted, there's not a ton. They don't use their wide receivers a ton, but I think this is a guy that you should jump on. I've talked about him on this channel. I talked about him as early as week 1, and there was a lot of smoke about this guy coming out of training camp. There was a lot of excitement about this guy coming out of training camp. In the last few weeks, we've seen why, now that they've finally gotten him involved. And let me just say another thing, Odell Beckham Jr. Oh, it's all Baker Mayfield. He can't fucking hit open wide receivers. I refer you once again to Donovan Peoples-Jones, who has an average of 20.9 yards per reception and a catch rate of 83.3%. Case fucking closed, Odell. Fuck you, bro. Sometimes you gotta look at yourself. And finally, let's talk about a couple guys I have talked about on this channel before, so this will go pretty quick. Van Jefferson, 42% rostered, the number 3 wide receiver for one of the most prolific passing attacks in the NFL this season. He is clearly the number 3 wide receiver with the release of Jackson. You're talking about a guy in the last 3 weeks has targets of 7, 6, and 7. Once again, in this passing attack, that's a pretty solid amount of opportunity when we talk about also that he is a vertical threat in this offense, and he is getting consistent usage in the red zone. Van Jefferson is a great add for a boom bust flex, somebody that you can throw in there and you're like, oh shit, fuck, I am not looking good this week, but maybe if I can get a long touchdown or something, he is one of those guys. Donovan Peoples-Jones, one of those guys too, by the way. So a couple good guys on this list for some great upside, some great boom side on weeks that maybe you need a little bit more boom than you do need floor. And then Rashaod Bateman, 24.4% rostered. He has gotten more, he's been more added recently, and that is good. His usage out the gate has been solid. We're talking about 6 targets, and 8 targets in his last 3 games. So he got 8 targets coming out of the bye. Granted, we are talking about a team that also played basically a full overtime as well. But he's basically hitting that 6 target mark that I want as a minimum. And then when you talk about what his usage is, he does get a lot of those vertical passing plays. So he is a guy that will have a decent average depth of target, should have a decent yards per reception, and he does have a decent opportunity at getting touchdowns moving forward. I will say that it's not super difficult, but it's not the easiest schedule moving forward for the Baltimore wide receivers. That also goes for, obviously, Hollywood Brown. But as I said last week, he is a must start. Once again, came through if you were one of the people that continued to put him in your lineup in week 9. I would like to thank you all for watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I will be joining Mike Lynch and Rashaod Taylor on 1080 The Fan here in Portland, Oregon for the Fantasy Scramble. As I do every week, we take start-sit questions in the last 30 minutes heading up to kickoff, and we dispense that last second wisdom to get your lineup set. You can also send in your start-sit questions to 503-250-1080 and send those in on Sunday morning, and then you can listen live on Odyssey. I will have the link in the description below. Once again, thank you for watching,